Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we have Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson's dad, Charles Harrelson, was an American hitman and organized crime figure. Yes, you heard me correctly. Beloved actor Woody Harrelson had a father who was a cold-blooded killer. He was just 7 at the time when his father first went to prison. It's said that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 20 people. In 1979, that is when Charles committed his biggest kill of all time. He took out a federal judge by the name of Judge John H. Wood Jr. He was the first federal judge to be killed in the 20th century. He was paid $250,000 to kill off this judge. It was because a drug dealer was about to be sentenced by this judge, who was known as Maximum John, because he always gave out really harsh punishments to drug dealers. So he got Charles to knock him off for him. But this landed him behind bars and in solitary confinement. He was there until he was 69 when he died from a heart attack. Obviously, Woody does not want to be defined by his father's actions. In our 9th spot, we have Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin is one of the few actors who actually grew up in a cult. He was born into the commune of Children of God, but when he was 4 years old, his parents managed to escape the cult and move. That's actually why they changed their last name to Phoenix, as it symbolizes rebirth, since they were able to leave this cult and start a new life. Unfortunately, he also lost his brother at a young age. In 1993, his brother River Phoenix died from an overdose. Joaquin witnessed this happen, and he was the one that called 911. In our 8th spot today, we have Phil Lewis. Phil Lewis is best known for his role of Mr. Mosby on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I freaking love that show. Like, it was honestly my childhood. Well, before his Disney Channel days, he actually killed someone. In December of 1991, Lewis fatally hit a 21-year-old woman. She passed away from her injuries from the hit. It was found that Lewis was driving while intoxicated. His blood alcohol levels were 3 times the legal limit of intoxication. As a result, he was convicted of a DUI as well as manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, 2 years probation, and 350 hours of community service. But he managed to only serve 1 year in prison. I guess Disney was able to overlook his past when he auditioned for Mosby on the show. In our 7th spot today, we have Tim Allen. Now, if you look at Tim Allen, you think, aw, he's such a family man. I love Home Improvement and Toy Story. He's a great actor. Wow. Tim Allen actually had quite a dark past before he got into acting. In 1978, Allen was arrested for attempting to traffic more than 650 grams of coke. He was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport. Now, he actually would have served a lifetime in prison, but he avoided this by giving police information about other dealers. As a result, his sentence was reduced to 3 to 7 years. He ended up serving 2 years and 4 months in prison and then was granted parole in 1981. I guess that's why they say don't judge a book by its cover, because he looks like a wholesome dad, not a drug trafficker. In our 6th spot, we have Jack Nicholson. In 1974, Time magazine discovered that Jack's sister, June, was actually his mother, not his sister. How wild is that? So June was only 17 when she became pregnant with Jack, and she wasn't married, so her parents agreed to raise the child as their own, with Jane and Lorraine acting like his older sisters. So his parents were actually his grandparents, and his sister Lorraine was his aunt. In regards to his dad, we don't know for sure who is his dad, but some say it was likely June's manager. Other sources claim June really just doesn't know who the father was. By the time Jack found this all out, his mom, June, and his grandma had already passed away. Imagine how that would have changed his life. Like, he was raised on a lie. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Sean Penn. A number of women have come forward saying that Sean Penn has been aggressive towards them. In fact, he has mistreated a number of his partners, including Madonna. They were married from 1985 to 1989. While in December of 1988, Penn allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and held her hostage for 9 hours and apparently hit her multiple times. When he untied her to let her use the bathroom, she fled to the police station. One officer said, and I quote, "Madonna staggered into the station. She was distraught, crying, with makeup smeared all over her face. I hardly recognized her. She had obviously been struck." Sean was charged with inflicting corporal injury and traumatic conditions on Madonna, as well as battery. But Madonna withdrew her complaint a week later and has rarely commented on it since, which is quite odd. Why would she say that he harmed her and then retract the statement? So who knows what really happened? happened. Moving on to number 4, we have Leighton Meester. Now, I personally did not know this, but Blair Waldorf, aka Leighton Meester, wasn't always the queen bee of Manhattan. In fact, she was born in prison. Basically, her mom was serving a sentence after smuggling a lot of marijuana out of Jamaica with the help of Leighton's dad and Aunt Judy. All of them ended up behind bars. In fact, her aunt managed to escape prison and became America's first woman on the US Marshals 15 Most Wanted list. How insane is that? In the end, Leighton's grandmother raised her while her mom served 16 months in prison. Thank gosh she didn't follow in her family's footsteps. In our third spot, we have Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken was involved in a death that is just shrouded in mystery. On November 29th, 1981, 43-year-old actress Natalie Wood was found dead floating face down in the Pacific Ocean. She was on a yacht with her husband Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken when this happened. The thing is, no one really knows what happened to her. Some say she slipped off the deck and fell into the water, while others are convinced that her husband or Christopher Walken had something to do with it, or that they know what happened. One theory is that Natalie and Christopher were having an affair, Wagner found out about it, got mad, and pushed her off the yacht. Now, Wagner seems to be the prime suspect, but many people think that Walken knows exactly what happened. I mean, he barely even talks about the case, and on the rare occasion that he did, he would call it an accident, and also he was absent from the documentary about her. All I'm gonna say is someone knows something. I'm getting the vibe that Walken knows what happened and maybe he just feels guilty about it. In our second spot, we have Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron actually had a very traumatic upbringing. Her dad struggled with alcohol addiction and would constantly threaten Charlize and her mom, Gerda. He would never physically hurt her, but he would hurt Gerda. One night in June of 1991, he got angry and fired shots at both of them. During that altercation, Gerda ran and grabbed her own handgun that she had kept hidden and shot him back. Her shots killed him while Charlize watched it all unravel. In the end, it was declared self-defense and Gerda never faced any charges. But think how traumatizing that must have been for her to see her mother shoot and kill her dad as a teenager. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Ashton Kutcher. Now, I never knew this and I was incredibly shocked when I found out about it. But on February 21st of 2001, Ashton Kutcher went over to his then girlfriend's house, Ashley Elrin. The two had planned on going to a post-Grammy party, but when he knocked on the door, there was no answer. That's because Ashley was dead on the floor of her home. She had been stabbed 47 times by a man named the Hollywood Ripper. He was responsible for the death of up to 10 women. As a result, Ashton Kutcher lost his girlfriend very suddenly and in a very traumatic way. He was also scared that he was going to be a suspect in the murder investigation since his fingerprints were on her door, but he never was, but he did have to testify in court.
Starting off this countdown in no particular order, we've got Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm is most notably famous for his role in the hit television series Mad Men as a cutthroat advertising executive. What he may not want you to know about him, however, were his less than savory college days that landed him in some serious trouble. In 1990, Jon was arrested for his alleged role in a fraternity hazing that turned horribly violent. His fraternity house was even dissolved after Hamm and his friends harmed a pledge so violently that he was in the hospital, even going as far as to light him on fire. Jon was charged with a misdemeanor offense, and when he was asked about it in 2018, his response wasn't the best. Quote, "I was essentially acquitted. I wasn't convicted of anything. I was caught up in a big situation, a stupid kid in a stupid situation, and it was a bummer. I moved on from it." Okay, now we're moving on, I guess. And at number 9 is Richard Pryor, the iconic comedian who is often cited as direct inspiration for other comedy legends like Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle. Pryor changed the game. But what you may not know is that there was an extremely dark past behind the All Smiles comic. Richard grew up in an extremely unstable childhood, raised by a substance-using mother in a brothel in Illinois. Richard saw things that no child should ever have to see, and to cope with such a horrifying childhood, he also turned to substance use to self-medicate. Richard was married 7 times to 5 different women who had trouble with the comic's insatiable personal life. He even almost passed away at his own hand when he doused himself in rum and lit himself on fire while using substances. Pryor's friend even stated in an interview, quote, "He has about 13 personalities, and while you could deal with 9 of them, the other 4 are a nightmare." At number 8 is Billy Tipton. Billy Tipton, if you haven't heard of him, was a revered jazz musician who rose to fame in the 1940s 1940s and 1950s. He lived his life in relative normalcy outside of his celebrity status. Although he was never married, he did have 5 serious girlfriends, all of whom referred to themselves as Miss Tipton. Eventually, he settled down with a woman named Kelly, and they adopted 3 sons together. It wasn't until his death from a stomach ulcer in 1989 that, as he was being rushed to the hospital, his giant secret was uncovered. Billy Tipton was born a woman and had concealed his sex throughout his entire life, even from his relationships. The revelation came as, quote, a shock to nearly everyone, including the women who had considered themselves his wives, as well as his sons and the musicians who traveled with him. To explain away any intimacy that would have happened between his partners, Billy reportedly said that he was in a serious car accident that mutilated his body, leaving him unable to perform. At the time this was revealed, it sent shockwaves through the music scene where trans performers were basically completely unheard of. In at number 7 is Prince. The iconic pop singer is considered one of the greatest musicians to have ever lived, but he also had a secret that was only uncovered upon his tragic and sudden death in 2016. After he passed, many stories started to come to light as both bank statements became public and from various sources. These bank statements revealed that Prince had been secretly donating insane sums of money to various charities throughout his life, each with the condition that the donation be private and that the donor be kept a secret. A few organizations that he did support in the days before his death were the Harlem Children's Zone and Uptown Dance Academy, New York. He even donated $12,000 to the Louisville Free Public Library in order to keep it from closing, all under the condition that they keep his name unlisted from donor records. He reportedly gave thousands away at a time, particularly to charities related to children, as his own child tragically passed away after only 6 days of life. He also focused on environmental issues, and uniquely, unlike a lot of celebrities who choose to invest so they get a financial return, Prince just donated to foundations that support environmental causes and a transition to solar power. Number 6, Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page is the virtuoso guitarist and founder of Led Zeppelin. Jimmy is largely known as one of the greatest guitarists in the history of rock music. I mean, he set the standard for the many who have imitated his electric style. Yet, what he may not want you to know about him is his predatory relationship with a young girl who was only 14 at the time. While he toured with Led Zeppelin, Jimmy dated Lori Maddox, although they kept their relationship extremely private and basically hidden because it was, you know, illegal and creepy. Even in the loose 70s, this relationship could have put Page in jail. They dated for a little while, and who knows what they did behind the scenes, but Jimmy eventually dumped her for BB Bell, who was of age at the time, thank God. Either way, not a fan of this one. In at number 5 is Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick is known largely for his titular role as Ferris Bueller in the John Hughes coming-of-age film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was also in The Producers and a bunch of other A-list movies. What you may not know about him, however, is that he was directly involved and in fact caused the death of numerous people. He and Jennifer Grey, the star of Dirty Dancing, were on a romantic vacation in Ireland when Matthew head-on hit the car of a 28-year-old woman and her mother. Both women were pronounced dead at the hospital. The road was straight and easy to navigate. The issue was that they were in Ireland, and he, out of habit, drove on the wrong side of the road, which led to the crash. Following the accident, Broderick was convicted of careless driving but was only fined $175, which to this day the family of the victims called a, quote, travesty of justice. At number 4 is Jackie Chan. While Jackie Chan appeared as a comedic kung fu fighting man on the screen, his personal life is absolutely insane and surprisingly not well known. In fact, Jackie himself didn't know until well into his career just how many secrets were being kept in his family. He learned in 2003 that he had 2 secret brothers living in China and that his father was a nationalist spy on secret missions to bust substance crime in mainland China. In fact, that's where he met Jackie's mother. In what seems like a moment straight out of a noir crime boss movie, Jackie's father met his mother, Lily Chan, because he was sent to bust her as an infamous dealer and legendary gambler in Shanghai. So, his mother was one of the lords of the Chinese underbelly, and his father was sent to arrest her. The two fled to Australia together, where they lived until their death. Jackie's father also revealed that the actor's real family name isn't Chan at all, but rather Fang. How's that for a family reunion? In at number 3 is Rose McGowan. Rose was one of the founding spokespersons in the Me Too movement, joining dozens of women who brought Harvey Weinstein to justice. She is best known for her 90s movies like Jawbreaker, Scream, and Encino Man. But what you may not know about her is her rather horrifying upbringing. She was born in Florence, Italy, where her parents lived in a commune called the Children of God. Basically, she was born into a cult that had mass allegations of horrifying crimes against humanity. I can't really say what they are because of YouTube restrictions, but if you're curious, I suggest you look into it with a serious context content warning in mind. The cult in question lured people in with promises of all kinds of physical intimacy and activities, with extremely young women set to perform such acts on the men in the cult. Luckily for Rose, she was largely protected from the more heinous side of the cult, and she and her family fled when she was 14 years old, where, quote, "We hid in an old stone house and had to boil pots of water to take baths. The cult sent people to find us. I remember a man trying to break in with a hammer." Number 2 on the list, Rihanna. While the celebrity singer is in the news lately for her exciting pregnancy with A$AP Rocky, what you may not know about her is her rather insane early life, and the secrets that they kept even from her until they were finally brought to light. Old family photos were unearthed that reveal a secret side of the family that Rihanna herself rarely ever talks about: her father's other kids. Rihanna has 3 older siblings through her father by 3 different women, as he admitted to being quite the womanizer in his heyday. Her and her father have an extremely complicated relationship, as he has dealt with substance use issues for most of his life. And now to find out that she had 3 other siblings she knew nothing about, it's a wonder the two have stuck together through so much. And in at number 1 is Mark Wahlberg. The actor and singer needs no introduction, but he may need a little disclaimer beside his name for the rather horrifying incident he caused in the 80s. When he was 16 years old, Mark had an extremely harsh life, and he ended up brutally harming an elderly Vietnamese man in a racially motivated attack. He shouted slurs at him while physically harming him so badly that Mark was charged with attempted murder. While he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, for some reason he only served 45 days. In a beautiful show of faith, his victim, whose name is Johnny Trin, stated that he forgives Mark. Quote, "Everyone deserves another chance. He was young and reckless, but I forgive him now. He paid for his crime when he went to prison." Mark got a pardon from the court, basically exonerating him from his crime, an action that he later stated he regrets. Quote, "I didn't need that. I spent 28 years righting the wrong. I was relieved to find out that the injuries to his eye had occurred in the early 70s and not from the incident that happened that night, but I was able to meet with him and his wife and his daughter and apologize for these horrific acts. Some good can come out of it." First up on our list today is Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is considered to be one of the most handsome Hollywood stars to grace the silver screen. He is also known for being an extremely talented actor who led a bit of a rough and tumble life. But what you may not know is that his ladies' man attitude resulted in various affairs and marriages, and, well, 8 kids, with the actor adopting 3 additional kids on top of that. And sadly, some of these children would have extremely unhappy lives. In 1990, one of Marlon Brando's sons, Christian, his sister Sheehan's boyfriend. Apparently, he had suspected that Sheehan's boyfriend was harming her physically, and so Christian ended up taking his life when the altercation escalated. He was charged with manslaughter and served 6 years in prison. Sadly, that wasn't the only horror that the Brando children would go through, as only 5 years later, Sheehan tragically ended up taking her own life after a diagnosis with schizophrenia and a steady mental decline. Next on the list is Liv Tyler. We all know her as the stunning half-elf woman in Lord of the Rings. She's also known as the daughter of Steven Tyler, the eccentric frontman of Aerosmith. However, that wasn't always the case. Liv Tyler was originally born as Liv Rundgren, and she believed that the famous musician and music producer Todd Rundgren was her father. However, a chance encounter as an 8-year-old with Steven Tyler started to unravel Liv's true parentage. During the meeting, Steven pointed out the eerie similarities between his own daughter and Liv, which led to her mother finally confessing the secret. Liv wasn't related to Todd at all, and in fact, her mother had kept the secret to protect her daughter because Steven was going through some serious substance issues at the time of their brief relationship. Liv eventually changed her last name to Tyler, but kept Rundgren as her middle name in homage to the man who raised her as his own at some point. Damn, I wish I had 2 rock star dads. Next up is MMA legend Ronda Rousey. She's got a spectacular record, and it's impossible to penetrate her amazing fighting legacy, as she has cemented herself as one of the greats. Her personal life, though, well, a little touchier. In fact, Ronda has a history of aggression in her past relationships, having violently harmed an ex-boyfriend. She is also a conspiracy theorist who has some extremely harmful opinions. She shared on her Twitter that she believes that the horrifying Sandy Hook incident was actually a manufactured incident, and that the people and children involved were actually actors. I can't think of anything more harmful and disgusting than promoting that the real-life harm of was done to take away guns from Americans. Ronda shared the video and described it as, quote, "extremely interesting and a must-watch documentary." Eventually, after obvious backlash, Ronda deleted the video and her manager attempted to scrub any trace of it from the internet. which obviously didn't happen because it is in fact the internet. Next up is Frank Sinatra. The smooth-singing romantic who charmed his audiences into the Hall of Greats has a seriously dark secret personal life. In fact, every move Frank Sinatra made was meticulously tracked by the FBI for 40 years in pages and pages of files. Why, you may ask? Well, outside of being held in suspicion for dodging the draft because of a supposed ear infection, he is also thought to have strong mafia ties. He's been seen in cahoots with a revolving cast of characters connected to the criminal underworld, including Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana, with whom he was close friends. Apparently, the FBI was so closely tracking Sinatra because he had introduced Sam to John F. Kennedy's campaign for presidency in an attempt to deliver Union votes. Dodging the draft and electing John F. Kennedy, Sinatra is a man after my own heart. Next up is the actor who portrayed Spider-Man in the original Spider-Man movies, you know, the ones with the PlayStation font. Well, Tobey Maguire has had an insane childhood that was largely hidden from the public when he became an A-lister. He came from a very financially strained family. His parents adopted several of his cousins after his aunt passed away suddenly, and the weight of now caring for all these kids left them destitute and broke. In a desperate attempt to provide for all these children, Toby's dad attempted to rob a bank. His attempt was unsuccessful, and his father had to spend some time in prison for his crime. Thankfully though, he was released after a few years because it was his first time offending, and the judge sympathized with his cause. Luckily for them, they made it out of the ordeal, and now Toby is an internationally recognized celebrity. Next on the list is Kevin Spacey, and not for what you might think, because really nothing can keep what he did a secret, and his attempts at hiding it are abysmal at best. But what you may not know is that there are more than a few skeletons in his closet, and he's got one secret that I actually didn't know. Kevin's left-leaning political views are very well known, so it may come as a surprise that his father was vehemently racist and believed that white people were a superior race. Kevin refuses to talk about his father, but his siblings have opened up a handful of times about their traumatic childhood, often describing their father as an evil monster. Apparently, their father would also continually his kids while they were growing up, and it got so bad that Kevin's brother Randy almost took the life of his father while the young boy was hiding in a closet, but he never opened the door. Although Kevin is a reprehensible human being, no boy deserves to grow up in such a horrifying environment. Next up is a K-pop idol whose secret is definitely out of the bag at this point. We all know just how strict and borderline harmful the K-pop industry is towards its stars, often restricting diets to near starvation in an attempt to get their already lean singers to lose weight, alongside 12 to 20 hours a day of dance practice. But one K-pop idol from the band Bang Bang has some dark underground secrets that only recently came to light. Seungri was sentenced last year to 3 years in prison for the crime of running an underground nightclub that bet heavily on foreign casinos where gambling is illegal. He was also charged with providing women to business executives for, services. Apparently, he's been doing this for years, and we only recently found out during a Korean military bust. Now it seems like sadly his K-pop days are over as he spends the next 3 years behind bars. Next up is Hollywood actor Casey Affleck. I'm surprised we haven't done this one yet, honestly. Known for movies like Manchester by the Sea and Gone Baby Gone, Affleck is a critic's best friend. But he's not everyone's best friend. In fact, Casey has been accused by multiple women of committing horrifying acts against them. Some say that he snuck into their bedrooms, others that when they refused his advances, he sent them violent and aggressive texts. Other women have said that he ordered a crew member to expose himself to this one woman. All of these allegations were attempted to be taken to court to be filed as multi-million-dollar lawsuits, but they were both settled for unknown amounts. Thanks to these settlements, we may never know if these accusations are true or not, but it seems really odd that not many people are talking about it these days. In fact, when asked about it, Casey brushes it off as hearsay, and his dark past seems to be fading into secrecy once again. Second to first on our list is Oprah Winfrey. The talk show host who revolutionized the game, Oprah's name is synonymous with the monolithic empire she's built surrounding her image. She's known for her lovable, relatable, and welcoming personality. But her humble beginnings make her rise to fame all the more deserved. In fact, Oprah was born in Mississippi to a single teenager mom, and she grew up in extreme poverty. During her childhood, the cost of raising a baby became too much for the young mother, so she sent Oprah to go live with her father, or at least one of the men who she thinks might have been her father. During her time with her dad, Oprah's mom gave birth to 2 more babies, one of which was given up for adoption. The real kicker here is that Oprah only found out about her sister Patricia in 2010. While a gut reaction to this news may be to cast harsh judgment on Oprah's mother, it is important to remember that it is impossible to know what it is like unless you have been in her position. For those who have been, we think you understand the brevity of her decision. Last up is Nicolas Cage. Now, I guess it's not exactly a dark secret here, and I may be cheating a little bit, but I only just found this out when I was writing the script, and wow, wild. Anyways, Nicolas Cage is known for his fun and sometimes extremely cheesy acting in movies like Face Off and Ghost Rider. But what you may not know is that Nicolas Cage isn't even his real name. In fact, Cage's birth name is Nicholas Kim Coppola, and his uncle is the famed director Francis Ford Coppola. The name change resulted from his wish not to cash in on the fame associated with the Coppola name in Hollywood, though the actor did end up appearing in several of Francis's films. It is quite believable when thinking about it for a few seconds, as both talents are just as eccentric as the other. The principal difference is that Francis Ford Coppola's odd ideals gave the world masterpieces like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, while Cage gifts audiences with wild overacting and melodrama.
Number 10. Katy Perry collects hair. The singer was once asked during an interview a very simple and cute question of, "What's in your purse?" And fans perhaps hoped that she would respond with a bottle of Killer Queen or a cupcake crumb. But Katy Perry answered, "It's just a big empty bag." But she went on to describe what used to be in the purse. She claimed that while in attendance at her first Grammy Awards ceremony, she got to share a dressing room with Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift. Now with all that excitement, you'd think she'd ask for a picture or something, right? No, she asked them for a lock of each of their hairs, which Katy found, quote, "totally awesome." Well, her definition of the word awesome must be very different from ours, because this sounds just creepy as all heck. She then elaborated that she would tie little bows to each of them and put them in her purse. Now this sounds so made up, how could it be true? Well, Miley and Taylor actually backed up this story online, and Perry claims to this day that Miley Cyrus is both the most famous person in her purse and in her contacts. Oh, hey, Katie, I think you dropped something. Number 9. Ellen mistreats employees. In her first on-air appearance since announcing the end of her eponymous daytime talk show, Ellen DeGeneres called the press cycle around allegations of toxicity at her workplace orchestrated and misogynistic. The announcement that her show would be cancelled came after months of receiving negative press following a BuzzFeed article reporting former employees alleging that the environment was racially insensitive, filled with harassment and bullying. Ellen maintained in interviews that these allegations were not the reason that she would be leaving the show, simply claiming that the program was no longer challenging for her. While the BuzzFeed report did not allege toxic behavior by Ellen herself, several former staff members claimed that the whole "be kind" motto she had was not genuine at all, which was reflected in a Twitter thread published by comedian Kevin T. Porter. He asked people to send in their horror stories about the host's rudeness over the years, and he received over 2,000 replies. Warner Brothers opened an investigation and concluded that there were some flaws in the day-to-day management at the studio. Following this, Ellen appeared on the 18th season premiere of her show in 2020 and made an on-air apology to viewers, claiming responsibility later, stating that there was no way she could know the true nature of the work environment due to the 255 employees that worked for her across multiple buildings. Hey, ever heard of like a complaint box? Number 8. Prince Charles's affair. He's now the King of England, but he's not always played by the rules. You see, in 1981, Prince Charles, at the time, married Lady Diana, who was 20 years old at the time, leaving a 13-year age gap between them. Behind closed doors, it was speculated that Charles was never in love with Diana in the first place, and it was later proven to be true. While on the outside things seemed pleasant, behind the scenes Charles was secretly meeting up and having an affair with his ex-girlfriend Camilla Bowles. The alleged relationship was written about in the 1992 Diana Her True Story book, but in 1994 Charles confirmed the allegations in a documentary, because that's a great place to do that. The couple filed for a divorce in 1996, and Diana died 1 year later. While the now king made it clear that he had no plans to remarry, he ended up getting remarried in 2005 to, oh hey, look, it's Camilla Bowles. Shocking. Number 7. Jonathan Majors charges. Jonathan Majors may be familiar to those of you who are fans of the MCU as Kang the Conqueror, the newest big bad addition to the never-ending roster of villains in Marvel's Rogue Gallery. Unfortunately, it looks like he may end up getting the CGI eraser treatment due to an incident in March of this year. Majors was arrested on misdemeanor charges of and following a domestic dispute with his girlfriend. These charges, however, would only be the first domino to fall, as rumors began circulating about similar instances in the past, with many people in both the Yale community, where he went to school, and the New York theater scene, where he studied and practiced performing, claiming Majors was well known for being emotionally violent and professionally abusive, but never physically violent. While Majors is currently in a battle to prove his innocence, claiming the situation to have been blown out of proportions, a series of texts uncovered by his lawyer seemingly proved that there was some merit to the incident. They showed Majors his girlfriend had passed out during the incident and as such had to be hospitalized, where she was reported to have several bruises and scratch marks throughout her entire body. This meant that the charges would stick, and Majors is definitely on his way to the bottomless pit of cancelled celebrities. Number 6. Caitlyn Jenner's transition. Now, this one isn't disturbing because of Caitlyn, it's because of how many people felt that her business needed to be a part of their lives. Let people live, you jerks. Rumors had been circulating of Caitlyn's transition since the early 1970s. The former Olympian had publicly denied these rumors for years, with many family members and friends even backing her story up time and time again. But in 2015, the rumors had begun surfacing again due to Jenner being spotted leaving a doctor's office by a tabloid journalist, supposedly after just receiving estrogen treatments. Jenner had also recently undergone reconstructive surgery, which seemed to only add more fuel to the fire. The photo taken and the speculation began to go viral, despite Jenner not being fully out at the time. But a few months later, following these events, she came out as transgender on a highly publicized interview for Diane Sawyer. In the interview, Jenner expressed the gender identity struggles that she has faced through her entire life, having to hide her true self in order to maintain some macho, sporty persona and for fear of not being accepted. Even revealing that her first wife, Christy Scott, was the first to really understand her struggles, and despite being divorced in 1998, she's publicly expressed her well wishes towards Caitlyn and how proud she is for being herself. You go, girl. Number 5. Kevin Spacey. For a long time, Kevin Spacey was well known in the Hollywood community as a quality actor with a steady career and no signs of that stopping. That was until October 2017, when a BuzzFeed article, once again, had been published alleging that Spacey had made unwanted advances towards a then 14 Anthony Rapp. Spacey was quick to deny the speculation, claiming it to be another Hollywood scandal to fill screen time, but since the release of that article, 30 more people have come forward with their own allegations against Spacey, ranging from harassment to attempted assault. Spacey pulled back, fake apologizing for what he says must have been some drunken behavior to Rapp, and he even attempted to shift the subject by coming out of the closet. But the truth had already been set free, and becoming a part of the now famous Me Too movement, Spacey was dropped from all projects he was involved in and has been on Hollywood's blacklist ever since, where he rightfully belongs. Number 4. Tiger Woods' infidelity. Since 1999, the famous golfer had not gone a single year without winning at least one golf major championship. In fact, between the years of 1997 and 2008, he had won 14 majors. He was married to a model, had a beautiful home, and pockets full of cash. What more could you want? Apparently for Tiger, he wanted someone that wasn't his wife. In late November 2009, Tiger was seen by neighbors being chased out of his home by his wife, Ellen Nordegren, with a golf club, before peeling out of his driveway in his Escalade and crashing into a fire hydrant and then a tree. He lied unconscious on the street for 6 minutes before coming to, but by that time, it was already too late. News coverage began speculating that there must have been some case of infidelity with Tiger and his wife. And while rumors had speculated that Tiger had a mistress on the side, it turned out that this guy had a lady in every course, so to speak. He admitted on air to the misdoings and lost his endorsements with Nike, Gatorade, Gillette, and Accenture, before announcing his retirement entirely from golf. Woods reportedly confessed to sleeping with 120 women outside of his marriage, but it wasn't until April 2010 when Ellen decided to split up with Woods for good after she discovered that one of those mistresses was the next door neighbor's daughter who was in college at the time. Go Capanu! Number 3. John Lennon's investigation. Lead guitarist of the Beatles and an incredible musician in his own right, John Lennon was always very open on his political views. He was anti-war, anti-establishment, and anti-government, proven by his counterculture-esque songs like Give Peace a Chance. This marked Lennon as a national threat, and his theory on what that meant was a little fishy. Many times in interviews, he would claim that he was under surveillance 24/7 and that he was seeing the same cars driving near his residence essentially every day. Now, while at first this was taken as the ramblings of a hippie under the influence of mind-altering narcotics, this theory was proven to be true in 1972 when the Immigration and Naturalization Service tried to deport him after the FBI had confirmed that Lennon was under investigation for over a year. He was able to fight back and stay in the country to continue his anti-war agenda. See, hippies aren't always crazy. Okay? Number 2. Arnold has a secret kid. Action movie star and former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger made headlines in 2011 with the revelation that an old rumor was in fact true. In 1996, Arnold was married to Maria Shriver, a member of the Kennedy family, and they were prepping to welcome their new son Christopher into the world. Arnie didn't prep by building cribs or baby-proofing the outlets though. Instead, he chose to have an affair with his longtime housekeeper Mildred Baina. Around the same time Christopher was born, so was his illegitimate son, Joseph. Rumors began to rise after his wife noticed the strange and sudden absence of the housekeeper, and wondered if there may have been a more sinister reason for her departure. It was later revealed in 2011 though that Arnold decided to address the rumors and claim Joseph as his own. It turns out that Arnold had given Mildred a large severance package so that she could properly raise their son, leaving on what they called good terms. Eventually though, after many years of trying and lots of paperwork, Maria and Arnold were finally divorced, and he is now able to spend more time as a father. Mildred is a chef, and little Joseph is now all grown up and following in his father's footsteps as both a model and in the movie industry. And number 1. Donald Trump's criminal activities. In 2006, Donald Trump was known solely as a wealthy real estate mogul with a hit reality show called The Apprentice. He had recently been married to Melania Trump, and he had a newly born 4-month-old baby. However, reports leaked that Trump was in the midst of an affair with adult film star Stormy Daniels after she filed a civil suit claiming that the contract he made her sign to keep quiet was invalid. Daniels claimed that herself and Trump had shared a very intimate relationship for roughly a year during his marriage to Melania. These weren't the first allegations of an affair, as Trump has been back and forth in the media since the 1970s, being accused by 26 women of harassment or misconduct. While these rumors never held any merit at first, the truth was finally set free. After being the most chaotic president in recent history, it was announced in March that Trump was being arrested on 34 separate violations of a New York law against falsifying business documents to conceal another crime. Basically, over the years, he was essentially taking company money and using it to pay off anyone who might have been a threat to him, both personally and politically. Well, hey, thanks for the free money, Donnie. We'll see you never. Number 10. She knew already. While all of the controversy surrounding Russell has come to light this year, it seems that Katy Perry may have known exactly who Russell was very early on in their relationship. An interview with Vogue magazine from 2013 has been making rounds online. During the interview, Katy reflects on her brief marriage to Russell, claiming that she felt responsible for the dissolution of their union until she found out the real truth. When they first met, Russell wanted to find an equal, but once he got that equal, he could no longer handle the equalness. She went on to say that he became very controlling as time went on, and while at first she felt responsible for the split, she discovered the truth eventually. The truth was something that she, quote, can't necessarily disclose because she keeps it locked in a safe for a rainy day. It sounds like Katy not only knew of the misconduct back in 2013, but she actively kept that information to herself. Had she just come forward, this entire situation could have been addressed a long time ago, but the victims were only willing to share their experiences after being hounded by reporters. Whether she planned on revealing the information at a later date or not, she denied the people that Russell hurt a chance to speak up as soon as possible. Number 9. Tried to have a baby. Katy admitted that while she was married to Russell Brand, that the topic of starting a family was a regular conversation. For Katy, it was pretty simple. She did not want to start a family with someone who she was pretty confident confident would use that family as an excuse to control her, but Russell is, a wholesome family man who's just ready to settle down, right? Katie admitted during an interview with Marie Claire that she was scared of Russell trying to make her a stay-at-home mom. When these two were a couple, Russell had some popularity in films and TV, but Katy Perry was, Katy Perry. She kissed a girl and she liked it. She was hot and cold and she blew up like a firework. Make 'em go, I'm sorry, I gotta get that out of my system. I just got a little carried away sometimes. As the relationship went on, the conversation stayed the same. Not ready till she knows he's gonna be a good dad and let her do her thing. Well, that was certainly not the case, and Katie believes that her unwillingness to bear a child is one of the main causes of Russell's decision. Whether that's true or not, Katie clearly made the smartest decision of her life when she said no to this man. Clearly a word that he was used to hearing, but he's known to ignore it. Oh, that guy sucks. Number 8. She was almost a victim. The allegations being brought against Russell claim that he is known for being aggressive, handsy, and just an overall nightmare of a human being. It's not even close to the right word, but it's the only one I can use. The general consensus is that this man is not good at first impressions. Most of the accounts being brought forward claim Russell to have been a tyrant since the moment they've met, with each allegation worse than the last. Katie's first interaction with Brand was filming a scene for the 2009 comedy Get Him to the Greek, a spin-off of Forgetting Sarah Marshall, featuring his character Aldous Snow, the musician, and Jonah Hill as like a record label employee. Katie made a cameo appearance in a scene that was ultimately cut from the final project, and the scene saw Katie and Russell's characters just locking lips during the opening montage of his downfall. Katie told Glamour back in 2010 that at the time she was stoked to film the scene, but it was their second meeting that really should have been Katie's first warning sign. They rediscovered each other when Russell took the stage at the MTV Video Music Awards in 2009. Katie flung a bottle at him and he caught it, but after the show, he was furious. When Katy Perry approached him, he claimed that she was fiery and that she caught his attention. Katie went on to describe the interaction and what Russell attempted to do that very same night. Katie admitted that Russell attempted to force himself on her, but she was successfully able to steer clear of him. Russell was furious, but he listened to what she said and he apparently walked away. 4 months later, they were engaged. Katie may not have understood what was happening at the time, but considering the horror stories coming out about Russell, she may have saved herself from becoming just another one of his victims. Number 7. The text. Breaking up with someone over text is a stupid thing to do. That is one thing that many of us learn as we grow up. Face-to-face needs to happen when it's something serious like a breakup or personal issues. While most people learn that by the time they're in their, mid-20s, Russell is in his 40s and still doesn't seem to get the memo. Katie released a documentary concert called Katy Perry, Part of Me, containing a clip that really should have stalled Russell's career the moment that it came to air, but oh well. The clip shows Katie lying down in a makeup chair sobbing, being told that she can either call it quits or continue the show. She had just received a text from Russell essentially asking her for a divorce. After a moment she stands and she's good to go, but during an interview in 2013 with Vogue, Katie told the outlet that she could not divulge the specific message that was sent. But to put it into perspective, she had not heard from him for 2 years following the cryptic text. We have to wonder what words he used and why he decided that a text was the best way to deliver this news. It literally makes no sense at all. Just none at all. Russell sucks. Number 6. Marriage went cold quick. Marriages do not have an exact timeline. Some last for 50 years, some for 50 days. For Katie and Russell, their marriage was cut short after only 14 months together. As previously mentioned, Russell was really the one who decided to call it quits, basically out of the blue. In the years since the divorce, Katie just maintains that Russell was slowly losing interest in her as a partner. According to Katie, Russell was jealous of her fame and would even attempt to berate her into thinking that he was the superior one in the relationship. When he decided to call it quits, she blamed herself at first, but soon discovered a secret truth about Russell that she keeps in her back pocket. The brief marriage is already a red flag in and of itself, but the timeline is just all over the place. Russell is known to be a chaotic man in general, sharing some pretty ridiculous views on politics, religion, everything. But during his time with Katie, that attitude never went away. According to her, he was constantly cornering her to spout his views, and he just would not let her go until she just kind of nodded and agreed. Now, it's not just Katie who has noticed Russell being an absolutely dreadful person. So for the rest of this list, let's talk about some general red flags that we've noticed over the years. Number 5. Aldous Snow. Aldous Snow is a character that Russell played first in the film Forgetting Sarah Marshall and then reprising the role in a spin-off called Get Him to the Greek alongside Jonah Hill. The worst thing about this character is just how easy it is for Russell to get into him. While doing press for the Greek, Russell was compared to his on-screen counterpart all of the time. This dude was always on no-no juice, partying hard. He was just basically Russell but on screen. But he would constantly deny any relations. In fact, during an interview with MTV, he told Laramie Legal that he was much more cool and mellow and slower, not as silly as some of you may think. We all know that's not true. Jonah Hill has gone on record saying that filming with Russell was super difficult. While they were both dedicated to the craft, Jonah just took the project a bit more seriously than Russell did. All This Snow was set to be a regular character on the big screen, but following the release of his film Arthur, Russell's acting career as a leading man was basically just gone. Number 4, he was banned by the King. The comedian turned actor may be best known for All This Snow, but for All This Snow, or maybe his musical chops with the real fake band Infant Sorrow, but what many may not know is just how much this dude hates the royal family. Who am I kidding? It's obvious, just look at him! He took to YouTube to express his opinions and declared that it was ridiculous to have a queen and having to be forced to call her things like Your Majesty. What's with Russell? He's such a jerk. He dug his hole even deeper when in his book Revelation, he criticized the queen for her German heritage, calling her a word that I'm not allowed to say online and don't Google it. Needless to say, this was a perfectly logical reason to ban Bran from entering the palace gates ever again in his life. He's actually one of the few celebrities in the entire world to receive this honor, so it really should have been the first big red flag when it came to this guy. Number 3, his rants. If there is one thing that Russell is well known for, it's his political and religious rants, which are usually pushed on people with, without their knowledge or permission. By that I mean you probably already paid good money to see this man live expecting a comedic performance, but you were instead met with some pretty messed up ideas about religion and just kind of the world in general. During one special on Netflix, Russell compared himself to Jesus a few times and gave several long-winded examples that I don't really want to repeat because, you know. This man has some truly dark beliefs. If you're curious what they are, just wait a year or two for the crime documentary to come out. Russell Brand, a special brand of evil. Man, that's a good title. I am smart. Number 2, stand-up. His rants are not just limited to the paying stage. This man is known around the world as a fairly mid-comedian. Now, nowadays he's probably known as the creepy guy from Bedtime Stories, but if you've had the misfortune of popping into an open mic or maybe even onto the streets of England, there's a good chance that you've been forced to listen to Russell Brand's stand-up. His comedy is crude, he veers into rants and statements more often than telling jokes, and at the end of the day, people feel like they just witnessed an underwhelming TED Talk about Lord knows what. Now, I've personally only seen like 1 or 2 of this dude's stand-up specials, and I can say with confidence, he is not okay. He's really not. Number 1, and at number 1, Channel 4, BBC. BBC Channel 4 News has been a staple in the world of British television for years, and by staple, I mean it's responsible for some of the worst celebrity interviews you've ever watched, but we've talked about that in a different list. Channel 4 is on this list because they have all of the secrets just wrapped up into a little bow. Not only did the outlet literally help launch this dude's career, but they have recently been at the forefront of the media storm thanks to a little documentary centered around Russell that clearly outs him as a vile and disgusting man. He has treated so many people so terribly over the years, with justice finally being served and the proof clearly being in the pudding. Number 10, the hypocrisy. Lizzo may have been a public advocate for body positivity, but as part of the lawsuit being brought against her, it seems like all of that positivity may have just been some act that she was putting on to make herself more universally loved. Now, I am not a small man. In fact, I have what many people consider to be a dad bod, and I'm cool with it. So, I'm not dismissing the notion that we should love and respect ourselves, but like, she made it a massive part of her personality on camera when it sounds like the only body she actually cared about was her own. According to her dancers, Lizzo regularly shamed her team and made them feel that they were too large or gaining weight, with several dancers confirming these allegations. Liz made several posts over the years spreading the positive body image, but now she's being called out for being a massive hypocrite, which she 100% is. That's like the government telling you not to do something when they just do it anyway. They would never do that. Right? Number 9. The leaked meeting. One of the dancers, Crystal Davies, who was a part of the lawsuit, was fired for secretly recording a meeting between herself and Lizzo. The meeting was about the dancer's performance on stage recently and Lizzo's apparent dislike of the weight that she had been gaining, claiming that she wasn't committing to her role. Initially, Davies only planned on recording the conversation for personal reasons. She has a condition that leaves her disoriented sometimes, and she wanted a backup on the off chance that she forgot what the meeting was about. After it was discovered that the audio recording recording existed, the dancer was promptly fired, apparently being pulled into a meeting just to get yelled at before they let her go, not even giving her a chance to speak. Lizzo exacting her star power to simply end the career of one of her main backup dancers is insane and is most certainly worth the lawsuit coming her way. Number 8. Her party lifestyle. One key factor of this lawsuit being brought against Lizzo is the place in which all these accusations went down. Lizzo was at a club in Amsterdam's red light district when she coerced, aka forced, one of her dancers to touch a woman's bare chest, despite saying several times that it was not something that she wanted to do. Facts are, this actually isn't the first time that Lizzo has been seen living it up at the club. Over the past few years, she's been known to be a regular party girl, spending a solid amount of time between touring to have just a good time and celebrate her success. But the amount in which she has been partying, despite being such an advocate for positivity, is wild. For someone who shares this message of loving yourself, she sure likes to drink the no-no juice, not to mention throwing her money around at every chance she gets. Nobody wants to talk about it, but that night in Amsterdam probably cost them a fortune. I don't know, I've never been. Moving on. Number 7. She made the dancers eat fruit. Alright, let's get into this Amsterdam situation. According to the lawsuit, Lizzo coerced her dancers to go out with her to a nightclub in the city's red light district. And once they arrived at the club, it was brought to their attention that the club encouraged dancers to wear their birthday suits. Dancers would also perform special shows in which they would launch things from their catapults. Nope, I don't like that one. Lizzo's team were encouraged to catch the launched items, which included various adult objects, and at one point the dancers were apparently encouraged to eat bananas that had been protruding from their fruit baskets. No, that's worse somehow. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Lizzo then told her crew to come with her to a club in Paris that was specifically filled with servers and staff wearing nothing at all. All the dancers were shocked and they were robbed of their choice to not attend. I think we can all agree being handed your food by someone in nothing but kitchen shoes sounds pretty uncomfortable. This is when Lizzo had heavily encouraged dancer Miss Davies to touch one performer on her chest, which she clearly did not want to do, but her boss yelled at her and told her to do it, so you know how that goes. Just an overall weird night, and I'm not even mildly shocked that someone came forward to call this out. Shady. Number 6. The dance captain. Lizzo is not the only person being named in this lawsuit. Her dance captain, Shirlene Quigley, is also facing a slew of accusations. According to the suit, Quigley shared lewd physical fantasies with dancers and the crew, and publicly discussed the purity of one performer while simultaneously berating all other dancers who had premarital relations. Now, sharing your beliefs is one thing, but trying to jam them down the throat of your employees, that's not a great move. According to several dancers from the past few years, whenever this woman was around, she was a nightmare, not only spouting her religious beliefs at anyone who had ears, but also attempting to convert several of the crew members. Quigley is being named personally in this lawsuit for creating a hostile work environment, having extreme racial biases, discrimination towards disabled employees, and a failure to prevent or remedy the situation. Number 5. Lizzo tried to distract us. Lizzo is just like the rest of the world. When she's had a few too many adult beverages, she's unable to keep her hands off her phone. According to a TikTok post from earlier this year, though, Lizzo admitted to sliding into Captain America star Chris Evans's DMs. She had apparently sent him emojis of dashing away, women playing handball, and a basketball. Now, I'm no detective, but was this supposed to be like, I'm coming to you, Chris, balls in your court? Who knows what she meant. But to follow up that message, she released a TikTok in which she lip-synced to an audio clip. You know, that thing that makes people tons of money for doing absolutely nothing on an app. I was going to quote it, but I can't physically type things from TikTok because my brain starts to twitch, so it's my least favorite app in the world right now, and that includes Flappy Bird. The fact that she openly admitted to not only overindulging in no-no juice, but also directly suggesting that Chris's butt, his ball is in her net. I don't know what the emojis mean. Many fans believe she brought this to their attention to save some face when the official lawsuit was released, possibly knowing that this was coming for quite some time. Number 4. Her TV show. Now, Watch Out for the Big Girls is a TV show that only recently came into my life thanks to doing research for this video. The series premiered last year and follows Lizzo as she hunts for confident women to join her world tour as dancers. In fact, among the many cast members on the show were 2 of the 3 plaintiffs in this case, Ariana Davies and and Crystal Williams. The show is just one of the many tactics that she seems to have used to make herself look better when the truth got revealed. Despite the show being a search for new talent, it turned into some kind of like a shield that she could use. How could Lizzo be so mean when she had a whole show dedicated to giving people jobs? Well, following the news of the suit, many people have called to question why Lizzo would work on the project when she's such an advocate for body positivity. Well, with no word from Lizzo yet as to her side of the story, the world is quickly canceling her from society, and we may just end up having to add her to our top 10 destroyed careers of 2023. Number 3. The hostile work environment. Lizzo created an extremely hostile work environment according to the plaintiffs, with several examples that have been backed up by former dancers and even some people involved with the documentary that she was trying to get off the ground. According to the plaintiffs, Lizzo made them work ridiculous hours, including up to 12-hour rehearsal days, and one of the dancers recounted an experience of having to use the washroom and being forced to do it in her pants while rehearsing so that she didn't lose any time. Like, Lizzo, if someone has to use the bathroom, let them go. Yeah, just let them go. It took longer for them to get the poor woman a new change of clothes than it would have taken her to go take 5, you know? Like, next time just let them pee. Let them pee in peace. In fact, as a form of humiliation on the part of Lizzo and her dance coach, they made Davies wear a see-through garment with nothing underneath and finish her day in front of the entire crew. Now, if that is not the definition of a toxic workplace, I'm not sure what is. Number 2, claimed that the dancers were drinking. Lizzo has made many claims regarding the women involved in this case, but one of the most outlandish is the idea that the backup dancers were indulging in no-no juice before every show. Lizzo claimed that the backup crew was lacking in energy, simply going with the motions and getting off the stage quickly as possible. This caused Lizzo to accuse several of the dancers on her team of party-hardying before they were supposed to do their jobs. Dancer Crystal Williams spoke out against the claim immediately, reminding Lizzo about the 12-hour rehearsal days and constant mental strain from working beneath her, being a contributing factor to the so-called dip in energy. Trying to claim that your crew has been slacking when they have the receipts? It's a bad move on Lizzo's part and will surely be one of the several reasons that she's cancelled this year. Number 1, she has said nothing. By far the shadiest thing of all, and the thing taking the top spot on this list, is the fact that Lizzo has said nothing about this at all, and it's not to say that she isn't aware of the suit. In fact, she posted on Instagram 3 separate times on the day that the news broke, but it had nothing to do with the lawsuit. Not only does that mean that she had her phone and was very capable of reading the news, but that she blatantly ignored the possibly thousands of comments and messages she is surely receiving. When something like this happens, it's important that the person being accused of the misdeeds to come forward and either fess up or deny everything. There's no in between. Being silent is the worst thing that you can do. It gives the internet more time to circulate negative stuff, and eventually it'll take over anything good that you try to do and will land you in a realm where no one can hear your screams or cries. Now, Lizzo could very well be taking her sweet time to draft up a proper statement so she doesn't actually say something wrong that the court can use later. Makes sense, because let's face it, this is about to be a rough few months for this woman. I'd wish her luck, but like a lot of people have backed up everything that's being said. So yeah. Number 10, there are substances on set. Actors using substances on set is nothing new. A lot of people are pretty sure that Seth Rogen smokes his herbs and spices on set constantly, something he's admitted to doing before, but not as often as the internet makes it out to be. However, in the earlier days of Hollywood, substances were not only done on set, they were encouraged by the studios, who would regularly feed their actors their narcotic of choice on set. In fact, John Belushi from the Blues Brothers was such an avid consumer of no-no snow that the price of powder was built into the budget for the 1980 flick. No wonder he's in sunglasses all day. If he took them off, he'd look like he just got pepper sprayed. Or something. I don't know what happens when you do that stuff. I'm a good boy, I promise. Facts are that this still takes place to this day. Now, I have signed a few NDAs in my time as a locations PA, so I cannot specify who does what and where, but the amount of celebrities that surprisingly love that no-no snow is astonishing. No wonder so many people deliver great performances. It's because they amp themselves up in a bathroom for 5 minutes before every scene. Number 9, Jim Carrey's origins. A Canadian legend, Jim Carrey is considered one of the greatest modern comedians of all time. He famously released 3 films in the year 1995, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, all of which made millions at the box office and still hold up to this day, except for a couple scenes in Ace Ventura, but we won't get into that. As many know, comedians tend to have a pretty rough backstory, as the best comedy comes from a place of pain. Over the years, Jim has come clean about his strange but fun upbringing. His family struggled financially, and he grew up watching his mother struggle with depression, which he claims to have been passed down to him. Despite his energy, he was a bit of a recluse growing up, and apparently he spent hours in his room making faces in the mirror instead of hanging out with his friends. After dropping out of high school to work a full-time job, Jim and his family were actually forced to live in a Volkswagen van together, becoming homeless for a short period of time. He went on to attempt a career in comedy, at first to minimal success, but of course he was able to find his footing and made his place in comedy history. Number 8. There are ties to the mafia. The film industry may be a multi-billion-dollar business, but where did they get that first bit of cash from to get where they are today? Well, apparently Hollywood has a dark history that's tied to organized crime families. The Trocadero, or the Troc, was a famous spot on the Sunset Strip back in the day, with many celebrities coming through the doors, along with studio heads and notorious mob leaders like Mickey Cohen, who was a regular at the establishment. He was a man who rubbed elbows with many of Hollywood's A-list. In fact, the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in the 1970s, was released by Bryanston Pictures, a company heavily linked to several crime families. While the production studio ended up going bankrupt, Hollywood is still filled with many people doing secret deals. I bet all of the money in my savings account that they had something to do with this Barbenheimer nonsense. Now that's not a lot of money, but the mob runs the memes, confirmed. Number 7. Woody Harrelson's father. Woody is best known in Hollywood as the wildest wild child ever to exist. He eats raw meat, he's an eco-crusader, he's a protester against violence, and an advocate for the legalization of herbs and spices in the United States. He's loved on screen, but did you know that his father took people out for money? And I'm not talking about on dates. That's a different job. Charles Harrelson was sentenced to 2 lifetime sentences for the slaying of a federal judge in San Antonio. And prior to that charge, Charles had previously been acquitted for the slaying of Alan Berg, who was a carpet salesman. And he was convicted of the slaying of Sam DeGalia. He's not the greatest hitman of all time. His track record will prove that. The evidence shows that Charles is not the greatest hitman of all time. Woody doesn't speak much of his father these days, opting instead to leave his family's trouble in the past. He does, however, say that the one piece of advice that his father ever gave him that he still uses to this day is always keep an open mind. Charles knew all about opening minds with bullets. Number 6, they have backups of A-listers. There have been many rumors over the years that Hollywood likes to clone their best and brightest on the off chance that they'll need them again following their ultimate demise. According to the internet, Paul Rudd actually got to star alongside his clone in the show Living with Yourself. Now, Paul has of course claimed that the performance was achieved with CGI and filming one character one day and another the next, but Paul Rudd is also 54 years old and looks like that, so something is not right about this. Now, there is a theory out there that the celebrity elites are made up of lizard people who take the form of actors and singers to influence us, and Paul is thought to be one of those lizard people. Now, I don't believe this theory, I'm just sharing something cool that I found on the internet, but it would be awesome if there were 2 Paul Rudds. In fact, that would be the most chill way to find out that cloned people exist. Just Paul being like, "Hi, I'm Paul," and "Hi, I'm also Paul. Everything's gonna be fine." Number 5, Mark Wahlberg should be in jail. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991, and despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids show, the crew had a small following and garnered a bit of success. Enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted and picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark play the leading man Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by the Chinese triads. He's had a successful acting career that has recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks jacked at the age of 52, so please don't hurt me, Mark. Infinite was just hard to watch. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the time he was in his mid-teens. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested when he was just 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of a hallucinogenic narcotic when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time have confirmed that Mark had a racial biased upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who just wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which did make contact and knocked one of the men unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of his 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life. Now, so far, he's kept that promise, and I can personally confirm that he's very polite and patient, because he actually watched a movie at the theater I used to work at. He does travel with a crew of 5 people at all times surrounding him. It's a bit intimidating, just a little. Number 4, Margot Robbie may be crazy. Margot may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she might be a psychopath. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margot reminisced about a little prank that she pulled on an old babysitter that involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I'm forced to use for the thing that you cut tomatoes with. Apparently, Margot had just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just apparently wasn't as cool as Talia. So she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After a particularly trying day where Margot refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good. She grabbed ketchup, her stabby jabby things, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. You know, the old "I've been stabbed" routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and just ran out the door. Traumatized, the woman quit and Margot successfully got her old babysitter back. But that is messed up. That is so messed. And Margot was like young when she did this. Like, it's a very dark place for someone's mind to go so early on in their life. Has she secretly been a little bit crazy this whole time? It might explain why she was so good as Harley Quinn. Number 3, Tim Allen's hobbies. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear and the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. While he may have played a family man on TV, many fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a few bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, what a name, and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, as he was being arrested, there was a guy in a car with him like, "And if you have 650 grams, you're a goner." However, that sentence was never served, as it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, it led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state, so being able to ignore that new policy entirely. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. Can that be a movie, please? Number 2, CGI'd before they pass. Unfortunately, computers are not only making everyone's lives easier when it comes to looking cool on screen, but they're also being used in some of the creepiest ways ever. So, the first example of someone being CGI'd into a movie following their passing was Carrie Fisher, and I do mean first to have a speaking line and be a significant character. Rise of Skywalker did not heavily feature her, but the fact that they had that ready to go so fast after she passed, it was super unnerving. They pulled this with Stan Lee too in one of his last on-screen cameos, and Marvel was going to do this with Chadwick Boseman in the sequel to Black Panther, but the studio changed their minds last minute, and thank the good Lord. But not only is Hollywood prepared to CGI their people into movies, they seem to have inside knowledge of when it's gonna happen. With the new addition of AI into the world of film, we're close to Hollywood not even needing actors anymore and just asking the computer to make Tom Cruise do stunts. Deepfake technology is also getting better and better, making it extremely difficult to tell if a video is authentic or just some CGI shenanigans. Nope, still just me. Number 1, they're all broke. That's right, despite it being one of the most lucrative industries in the world, most of Hollywood's actors, writers, directors aren't as well off as we may think. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past month, most of Hollywood is closed right now as its staff are on strike. Some of the toppest of tier actors have joined their crew in solidarity, not stopping until Hollywood's producers and big budget studios start sharing the money that they make. Actor Sean Gunn gave an interview this last week where he mentions working on a show currently streaming on Netflix, a show that has made over $4 million in residuals, of which he's received basically nothing. This type of financial woe extends to a ton of people in Hollywood, and I just wanted to take this moment to wish luck to anyone out there on the picket lines. Hollywood, pay your people, and everyone holding a sign or waiting for the strike to end, get what you're worth and get back to making the world a better place.